Welcome to the Men's 911 Show. Each week, mental health host experts Sharon Jackson and Tara Evans share their wisdom on how to help men afflicted with female abuse. The mission is to support men who have suffered interpersonal abuse and assault of domestic violence. More than 830,000 men fall victim to domestic violence every year, which means every 37.8 seconds, somewhere in America, a man is battered. Tara and Sharon tell the untold stories of abused men to bring awareness to the changes that need to take place so that men of all ages can receive the support and services they need to reach their potential for a healthy and meaningful life. Tara and Sharon help guide you on your way to improve outcomes for this underserved population. Okay, audience, here is Men 911 with Sharon Jackson and Tara Evans.
Welcome to the Men's 911 Show, coming to you on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. on KWRH 92.9 FM and KXOK 102.9 FM, simulcasting and on the My Genre Radio Network, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. You may also go to the usradionetwork.com. In today's society, approximately 1 in 8 men will experience domestic violence in the form of psychological trauma, physical violence, and or stalking by a female partner. The mission of the 911 show is to bring awareness and education, show support, provide resources and tools so that men can restore their identities as leaders, providers, and protectors in their families and their communities. Today, Sharon and I welcome our guest to the show, Hannah Beckman. Hannah is a 17-year-old student who lives in North Carolina and has for the past few years been working to help male domestic violence targets within her community. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. It's been a joy. I should start off a little bit by how Hannah and I met. When I started my research probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I contacted Marcus Jackson from the Taylor House, who we had on our show in the very beginning. And Marcus was contacted by Hannah, who was doing her own research on this issue. And that's how we connected. And we've stayed connected. And I'm so happy that you're able to come on today, Hannah, and talk about your work. It's just a real pleasure. Could you tell us a little? Oh, sure. Could you tell us? Could you tell us a little bit about what introduced you to the issues of domestic violence and how you see the problem of male victims of domestic violence?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for everybody who is interested in this issue, there is definitely a personal element. But for me, on a bit of a broader scale, I watched a documentary about domestic violence and abuse, and for me, there was one statistic that really stood out, and it was that nationwide there were only 2 domestic violence centers specifically dedicated to men and their unique needs. And even for me, when I was like 15, I was like, there's no way that that's accurate, right? So I started to do my own research and realized like there is such a resource disparity and that this issue is so much more prolific than a lot of people realize. And me and my friends all, being really, we're very involved in, speech and debate and like advocacy work and policy courses at my school. And so that being a passion of ours, we started to see if we could pursue this further and if we could make any real change in our community.
That's exciting. That's exciting. What inspired you to take action?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've been able to be involved in my community in different ways and see disadvantaged communities and what that does to the people. And for me, I have a little brother, and the thought of him ever falling into one of those groups where there aren't enough resources for him to recover from a situation, or if he finds himself in an abusive situation, he doesn't have any place to go. He doesn't feel like he can reach out to me, or he doesn't have a shelter or a support group or anything that he could, if he ever were to find himself in that situation without recovery resources or without help, like that thought was so heartbreaking to me. And just realizing that is the reality and that is the situation for so many people and their families was really moving, and honestly, it's heartbreaking.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about what you did when you called the shelters? Because you and I had talked previously about,
Right.
you know, when you went looking for help. What happened?
Yeah. So it was a really long process.
No.
It was a really long process because there isn't enough research, so a lot of it did different coalitions and organizations within my state to kind of figure out what was being done, and came to the conclusion that there wasn't anything being done. And much more than that, a lot of the representatives that I talked to were assuring me that this wasn't an issue, and that
Right.
men have the help that they needed, and really there weren't even that many men being abused at all, and that I shouldn't worry about it because they're fine.
Right.
And that was really contradicting everything that I had been hearing. That was so confusing to me, but with the bureaucracy and everything, every organization I called referred me to somebody else. Oh, this really isn't in our jurisdiction, and they referred me to somebody else, and then I would get referred back to them, and it was this just insane back and forth. And it was really discouraging. But that's the attitude
Right.
surrounding male domestic violence victims and their struggle. That really is the attitude surrounding it. People don't like to see men as an underserved population, and it is something that is pervasive in our society. I see it even in the mentality of classmates and in our society. There is this mentality of men. It's harder to see men as the victims, and why that is. There are so many reasons for that, but it is something that has really hindered our ability to move forward and to help these men.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We haven't even moved past the point of recognizing that these men are victims. And
Right.
if we haven't done that, how are we supposed to help them?
Exactly. And you're the senior in high school now. What do
I
you
am.
see amongst your age group? How does this present?
So there are two sides to this, which I think is really interesting. But I think there is definitely one side that is very open to seeing these issues and hearing about different problems. And when they encounter an injustice, they want to help. I do think that for better or for worse, in my generation, there is a strong sense of justice. We want to see justice done. We want to do, what's good or right. And that an idea of that can vary from person to person. But I do think a lot of times when you encounter an objective issue like domestic violence, there is this want to take action. But I also think, on the other hand, people have a really hard time reconciling this idea that men can be victims too. And even if it can look different from when a woman is a victim, it can also manifest in similar ways. But I think regardless, people do sometimes have a hard time seeing a man as the victim. And if you can't get over that, then it's harder to take action. So I will sometimes see, the mentality of, if a man is abused, he's weak, or it makes him less of a man. There's this sort of emasculating talk
Yes.
that happens a lot of times with guys that I know even. And I think it's really sad that we perpetuated that mentality. I think it's something that is taught.
Right.
And so I think it can be hard to see that and to know that we have to work past it, because we have to work past it.
Right. Right. That's exactly what we see. That whole the emasculation, even calling men victims, is emasculating. That's why we
Right.
prefer the term target, but
Mhm.
emasculation is that. What steps did you need to take in order to finally propose legislation?
Yeah, so that was definitely an interesting process. It was a very rewarding process. But after me and some friends, I had a team of friends, but specifically me and my friends Grace Powers and Chloe Lipka. I have to give them credit because they were so wonderful. That us three ladies worked together and did a lot of research within our community and started talking about it among our peers. It was hard to dig up the research, but we really did for an extended period of time. Making phone calls and reading articles and writing papers, right? So we were doing that. And after we'd finally accumulated and collected all of that research, we started to email legislators in our state. So I remember distinctly, like, I went into the database for the North Carolina General Assembly and copied every single individual House of Representatives
Good
email.
for you, girl.
And there are a lot of them.
Yes.
So I, of course, wrote them all out, typing on my little computer, and we drafted an email, and we took it to our English professor and our AP government teacher, and we had them read it over, and like, we were meticulous about how we were going to do this. Also because we were 15, and we wanted to be taken very seriously. So we drafted out everything, and of course we sent it, and we got 2 responses. So one response from somebody who ended up never really following up with us, and I don't fault them for that at all. But we got another response from a man named Representative James Roberson, who we've been working with for a while now, but he was so great. He had just entered into his first term in the House, and so he was really willing to work with constituents directly. And he responded to us, and he had told us that, just a few weeks prior, a man had called him who had escaped an abusive situation, and that because of that moment, his heart was really geared towards helping these abused men and these targets, right?
Right.
And so for us to reach out to him, he really felt called to follow up with us and to work with us. So over the next year or so, he developed a piece of legislation which he sent back to us for edits, and we finalized it. It was a legislation for a grant program that was going to help current centers to expand their programs for men and their help resources for men to give men the specialized help that they deserve. So we were so proud to be a part of that experience. That was really great.
Yeah, and boy, thank goodness he, accepted and took on the challenge, right? Because that's we know it's a challenging topic. How did you? I'm just kind of curious. How did you frame the problem to him when you contacted these legislators? How did you define the problem, and how did you frame it?
Definitely, I think we wanted to start by really trying to capture their attention. I remember, I think we just really framed it as like, there are people in your state who need help, and you have the power to help them.
Good.
I think that was really our, it was very honest.
Yes.
Which I think was nice. There was no ulterior motive behind it. There was just, we're students, who have discovered this problem, and we don't feel like it's being talked about. We wanted to give it coverage, and we wanted to give it care. And I think for Representative Roberson, too, it was interesting that we were students, because he had been, I think, the dean of a school or a principal for a long time. He had worked within education. And I think that he liked seeing us really engage in our communities and want to help others and want to help our family members and other people who have suffered from this. I think it really spoke to him in a unique way. And so our partnership has been very beneficial all around.
Oh, good. Do you maintain contact with him? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So
wonderful.
The initial piece of legislation, I think, ended up getting stuck in Appropriations Committee. So I'm not sure it ever left Appropriations Committee, but we do have a new piece of legislation. We have a new piece of legislation that is being introduced into the long session, and I will find the name of that bill for you guys probably in a few minutes. But
okay, sure.
That piece is a little bit more recent. And we're really excited about that. We're excited that the fight hasn't stopped, even though, I think this issue still isn't getting the amount of attention it deserves. But that's also part of why I'm so grateful to be able to come on this radio show and other platforms like this to spread awareness in different ways. Because the more we start talking about it, the more it becomes a priority for our legislators to focus on it.
You're right. It's exactly right, Hannah. And that's our mission of our program, is to bring awareness to it. How were there any roadblocks that you encountered?
Yes. The bureaucracy, especially. There were, those organizations who weren't really acknowledging that this is a legitimate issue. And I think a lot of that is due in part to education. There is a lack of education, and there's a lack of journalism and studies that are being done around this issue. And so if there isn't the research, you can't really expect people to have those statistics. right? But it is sad that the people who are spearheading those abuse help programs, that they aren't aware of these statistics and that they don't know. Like, to me, that is a very scary thought.
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like these are the people who should be most aware, and they should be helping us to at least communicate and spread what limited information there is. And I think we need more studies. I was able to interview a doctor in my area he works in the emergency room, and he's seen firsthand that this is an issue, and he recognized that there is a gender bias,
Yes.
and the same research isn't being done to corroborate the idea that, men can suffer from this too. It is a universal issue. It's not, you can't fault somebody for struggling, and I hate that we've engendered struggling.
Right.
That to me it's backwards. But, well, I think some of the biggest roadblocks were the lack of research. But in that also, it challenged me and it challenged my friends to look in new places for the information that we needed. So we were able to make really interesting connections, like the connection with the doctor. And overall, I think, although it's sad that the people who are a lot of times overseeing the development of shelters and who are overseeing all of this, they aren't aware of this problem, that's even more why we need to keep talking about it. I think that's going to be one of my big things, is just we need to keep talking about it. We need to spread awareness in your own community. Talk to your friends, talk to your family members, look for the signs. Because if we aren't talking about it, we need to be talking about it.
Right. Yeah, we talk about that a lot on our show, Hannah. One of the problems is the statistics are wrong. As far as I'm concerned, all statistics are wrong, because the number one thing is that men aren't reporting their abuse. And until men report their abuse, then you can say you have good statistics, and they're not doing it. And the other problem is that the way women abuse isn't necessarily illegal or against the law, so they get by with it. But it's clearly abuse. So until we get that right, and there's so many men who are abused and don't even know it, right? I mean, it's so manipulative, right? And we talked about coercive control, how that piece, we don't even. So there's so many elements to it, but we do have to talk about it, and we have to educate. And the other thing is funding. These nonprofits and social service agencies are always competing for funding. And what Tara and I have found out, they always want to show statistics. Well, you and Tara and I and anyone doing this work are really leaders in this, because nobody's doing it. We're really setting the foundation for it. And when you start anything new, there isn't the statistics, but we know, we have the experience, and we know it's an issue. And by your research, we know it's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it.
Right.
We absolutely have. We've seen it.
And everyone knows, everyone, I would, hard to say that someone does not know, has not experienced a violent or abusive female. I mean, women, there's equal, right? They just have the potential to be just as violent as men. I mean, that's just human nature. So to deny that women can be violent or abusive is just wrong too.
Right. It's so hard, because this is a human issue.
Right.
It's hard because, you never want to diminish the experience of anybody who suffers from abuse, whether they be men or women, but we can just see, that there is one side of this issue that's receiving so much more attention.
Right.
And that is sad, because we've seen how it can affect these people. And so it is backwards when our leaders are unaware of something that us in our communities and in our homes see happening silently.
Right. Right.
That's the real problem, is, and how are people supposed to recognize when it's happening if we don't talk about it? So you really need to put in an effort to learn to recognize the signs.
Right.
So Hannah, this is Tara, and the information that you're sharing is amazing. And I just have to commend you at your young age for being able to make such a headway into this very sensitive topic. So I just thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had is, have you had any experience speaking with law enforcement or the justice department or anything, judges, anybody that can help to bring more awareness to this issue?
Sure. So law enforcement has been harder. I have not had a lot of experience speaking with law enforcement myself.
Okay.
I have had, as I mentioned before, that interview with the doctor in my area. But additionally, I not only have been able to work with Representative Roberson, but I've also been additionally involved in government in my area. I was able to page for the North Carolina House of Representatives, so I served with them as a volunteer for the week, and I was attending sessions. And that was a really unique opportunity for me to be able to lobby the bill to other representatives and talk to people outside of my immediate sphere. And something that I thought was really interesting was there was a resoundingly pretty positive reception towards the issue. I think a lot of what's stopping us is there are other issues that seem to take priority. And so I think this one is getting pushed to the wayside.
Yes.
I don't think people inherently realize how important this really is, and what a difference it would make to the lives of these men. That to me is what's most startling. I really think that although there is an acknowledgement of this issue in private, publicly is where we start to see the issues, and that's where we've encountered some of the hardest difficulties in moving forward. But I do think that as we keep speaking about this, I think that progress is inevitable, but we have to keep trying.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said is I've lost my train of thought a little bit. That we really do have to keep talking about this, because while they don't feel that it's a serious issue, it really is a serious issue, because it's affecting men in other areas of their lives that present themselves in society. When they're being abused at home, and the kids needs are not being met, the family expectations are not being met. There's so many other things that come out of the abuse of a man that I believe that society is overlooking. It's just not, oh, he's being abused at home. We recognize that, but we have so many other things on the in the fire that we're overlooking, that there are children in the household. There are so many other components to this abuse that it's definitely being overlooked. And so I agree with you, and at some point I think when we're out talking, we need to really double down on those other things that are being affected in community. It's just not about the abuse. If the man is not functioning at his highest potential, then the family is not functioning, and the children are the ones that suffer the most. Last week we had a son of a man who was abused, and it was heart-wrenching to hear him talk about this abuse as a child, and how he talked to the school about it, and nothing was done. When the police would show up, well, what did you do to make her do these things? And him having to have a hiding place at home, it was just ridiculous that nobody was doing anything. They knew about it, but they did nothing.
It's absolutely, any type of abuse fractures the household. And so I think it's important that we, discuss the other half of this, that, we talk a lot, you see a lot in the media information about men who have abused women, but just as detrimental to the household is when you have a relationship, whether that be a husband and a wife or a man and his partner. If there's abuse in that relationship and there's a family involved there, that fractures the household just as much.
Yes.
So we need to be giving it the same level of attention.
Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely. Has this process opened any doors for you, Hannah? This work?
Yeah, I absolutely loved being able to lobby the bill, and it has a lot of this has shown me, what I want to continue to do with my life and how I want to continue to engage in my community, even if it might not always involve domestic violence advocacy or abuse advocacy. But I think that as citizens, we all have the right and luckily the freedom to advocate for the things that we believe in. And so being able to see the power of my voice and the power of my friends' voices, being able to see what that can do, even when I was only 15 and now I'm 17, over a few years, what a few people can do, that's really remarkable because, you hear about it in media sometimes, you hear about success stories or people might tell you, your voice matters, stand up for what you believe in, but to see that in action is such a powerful thing.
Right.
And so I think my message to anybody would just be, if you really believe in something and you feel it and you see it, work for it, please fight for it, because other people feel it and see it too.
Right.
Man,
Right.
it's the truth. So has this really made you decide on what major you're going to choose in college?
I definitely think that I'm going to go into like a political science and global studies route. I'm also very interested in Latin American studies, which is kind of a separate thing. But for me, cultural studies is just about communication. So in so many ways, I value communication, and that manifests or appears sometimes with, things like this, domestic violence. I want to communicate with my lawmakers, and I want to communicate with my family about this issue. And at the same time, I want to communicate with other people by learning a new language or whatnot. But overall, for me, it's about communication and it's about justice.
Very good. Yeah. Also, I'm kind of curious what your teachers, it's quite impressive the work that you do. what your teachers think,
My teachers are very, very supportive of me, especially, my government teacher. Shout out to Miss Setzer. Miss Setzer is awesome.
Yeah.
She has been just my biggest champion and biggest supporter. She's constantly believing in this and constantly picking me up when I fall down. She's a huge reason as to why this entire endeavor has been successful for us, because she does pour into her students and she encourages us. And one of my principals, his mom runs a domestic violence shelter. And so for him, he was so touched and so happy to see his students really engaging in something that he feels deeply about.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, that's just been incredible. And although she's not my teacher, my mom has also been very excited.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Your mom is always your teacher.
Yes.
She is. That is true. She's taught me so much.
Yes.
Good.
So we're going to take a short break, but we will be right back after these brief announcements.
Do you want to become a radio show host, or do you want to create a radio show? Well, Dr. Stan Fine can help you to have your own radio show and put you on 100 cities daily across the U.S. And you can immediately start recording from a live radio studio. As a radio industry veteran, Dr. Stan Fine has 12 years of experience and has produced and hosted over 1,000 radio shows with over 10 million listeners. Dr. Stan Fine knows how to make this happen for you. He's a pro, and he can turn your dreams into a reality. Dr. Stan Fine will help you with everything from learning how to promote your show, develop a host persona, interview techniques, market your show on social media, teach you how to get guests and sponsors, and more. Dr. Stan Fine can put you on the air nationwide daily to 100 cities. If you're interested in making your dream come true, if you want to see how it all works, then give Dr. Stan Fine a call at 314-710-8413. That's 314-710-8413. You've got nothing to lose, and Dr. Stan Fine can help make your nationwide radio dreams come true. If you're looking for a new informative health and lifestyle show to gain knowledge and inspiration to help guide your journey to think, work, and live more powerfully, then you need to listen to Sage Advice with Melissa. Now, whether you're trying to improve your life from a mental, physical, or spiritual journey, Sage Advice with Melissa Coleman, CEO of Sage Skincare, delivers weekly advice from industry experts to provide you with insightful suggestions to allow you to thrive with a better quality of life. Melissa's mission? To guide you through the uncharted waters of health and wellness and to give you a voice to help improve your life. So be sure to tune in to Melissa. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, listeners, saying thanks to your customers is nice and polite, but expressing your gratitude in memorable and ongoing ways can boost your business. At Promo Experts LLC, we exceed our customers' expectations. For over 20 years, our product knowledge and experience has helped them with their marketing initiatives and trade show graphics. We are happy to put that experience to work for you. Quality products, great customer service, and prices are our number one priority. We work with you to find unique, creative, and new ideas that fit your image and expectations, helping you build strong relationships with your customers. When you select Promo Experts as your marketing partner, we help you to see more than the big picture. For more information about this exciting opportunity, contact Diane Carson, President, at 636-458-5241. That's 636-458-5241. Let Promo Experts help you to move your business brand beyond the bland. Have you always wanted to write your own book but don't know where to start? Publishing Concepts, a publishing company located right here in St. Louis, offers everything from consulting, book printing, copyrights, ISBNs and barcodes, print book layout, ebook and iBook layout, graphic design, cover design, ghostwriting, typing and editing, distribution, marketing, and more for an affordable price. Visit publishingconceptsllc.com or just Google Publishing Concepts to get started today, or call 314-781-8880. That's 314-781-8880. Publishing Concepts. We help you sell more books.
In today's economy, there are more people looking to buy and sell businesses than ever before. When a company owner needs to sell their business, they can't just stick a for sale sign in the window. They need the assistance of a business broker to locate and vet potential buyers. On the other side, buyers rely on the broker to help facilitate the process of evaluating potential businesses and franchises for sale. A Transworld Business Advisor is the solution for both scenarios. Transworld Business Advisors focus on three core concepts: business brokerage, franchise consulting, and franchise development. Transworld has specialized in the sale of business and commercial real estate. Today, Transworld Business Advisors is a global network of brokers offering a turnkey solution for those that want to build a solid business and future for themselves while maintaining a balanced quality of life. With our comprehensive training program, full marketing support, and local field support, you won't have to start from scratch. Our trained experts and members will help you every step of the way. Transworld Business Advisors has 40 plus years of experience, 10,000 plus businesses sold, and 600 plus brokers, 250 offices worldwide. For a free initial consultation, call Charlie Scarlett, business broker, or Billy Rowland, business broker, at 636-400-6100. Again, that's Charlie Scarlett, business broker, or Billy Rowland, business broker, at 636-400-6100.
Many small businesses do not have a marketing manager. In many cases, it is the company owner that drives marketing and sales efforts with the gut instinct to survive. Even when small businesses do have a marketing manager, though, many of them are trying to navigate through the complex sales and marketing landscape with little to no success or budget.
How to Promote Your Business with Limited Money is a general purpose how-to business book written for business owners and marketing professionals by business owners Dr. Stan Fine and Joseph W. Clote. This guide is not intended to be read as a front-to-back chapter book and rather serves as a quick reference guide. Refer to this book as you need specific information and skip around as needed.
Promoting your business with limited money is one challenging feat, but there are unlimited ideas you can apply to achieve objectives you pre-establish. So put on your marketing hat and let's take action to start showing your prospects the value your business delivers.
A little you need to know about Dr. Stan Fine during his 60-year career. Dr. Fine has become an authority on sales and marketing business development issues. His presentations have made him much in demand as a speaker and seminar leader. He has taught business development topics at numerous universities across the United States and has conducted over 500 sales and management seminars. Some of Dr. Fine's credentials in corporate America are currently Dr. Fine serves as a co-host of the Do Your Business radio show on KDORH 92.9 FM in St. Louis and a co-host of Nationwide Daily Radio Show on my Genre Radio Network on the Zeno Media platform. In 100 cities, he is also on a daily TV show on the Valuable TV and the Real TV networks. Go and get a copy of How to Promote Your Business with Limited Money today.
To purchase your copy of How to Promote Your Business with Limited Money, go to It's Your Business website at www.itsyourbusinessradio.com.
Welcome back, audience. You are listening to the Men's 911 Show. In today's society, approximately 1 in 8 men will experience domestic violence in the form of psychological trauma, physical violence, and/or stalking by a female partner. The mission of the Men's 911 Show is to bring awareness and education and provide resources and tools to support men so they can experience healthy lifestyles and nurturing relationships that reinforces responsible manhood and preservation of families. If you are a victim of male domestic violence, we encourage you to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. For more information about the Men's 911 Show, please email us at mens911show@coverthefamily.org. To learn more about our programs or to donate, please visit our website at www.coverthefamily.org. Now back to the Men's 911 Show.
Well, hello, Hannah.
Hi.
We have Hannah, who is a high school senior on the line, who did some work and advocacy work for male victims of domestic violence. Hannah, can you go talk a little bit about, just for review, you talked about it a little bit, but why do you think that this issue is so important?
Yeah, so I honestly think that this is something that does pervade our society that's not receiving attention. And not only does it pervade our society, but it hurts our society. And sometimes society can be a little bit of an impersonal word, but it hurts our communities and it hurts our families. It can hurt our friends. You know, these people that we care about, these men in our lives who are suffering from domestic violence, who have been targeted by abuse, they're not receiving the help that they deserve. Their abuse isn't talked about using the same language that abuse is talked about when regarding women, right? And for whatever reason that is the case, that we've somehow created an atmosphere where it's not safe and it's not accepted for men to discuss the abuse that they faced. And sometimes it's not even realistic to expect men to realize the abuse that they have experienced because it's shut down, right? And so we now have this sort of petri dish of issues where men are experiencing something serious that affects the quality of their lives and affects their homes, but they don't have the language to discuss it, and they don't have the avenues or the escape routes to leave it, right? And that is such a sad thing and a dangerous thing if it goes unnoticed and untreated. So that's really at its core. I think that's why we need to be discussing this issue.
Right, that's excellent. And you did talk about, again, can you give the names of the politicians who supported your work and just briefly how that process worked in North Carolina for those who might be interested in getting involved in their own states?
Yeah. So in my state, it was Representative James Roberson, and that House Bill, North Carolina House Bill 339. Okay. So that's Bill 339. And the process of reaching out to my legislators was, honestly, that was not the most difficult part of the process. I was able, very luckily, to come into contact alongside my friends with a man who's very open and very willing to hear us out and to help our cause. That will not always be the case. right,
Right.
for people in their own states. Receptiveness and responsiveness can vary from state to state depending on who you're talking to, and it may be harder to garner any sort of response from your lawmakers. I hope that that is not the case, but I think persistence is important, determination, because there will be closed doors, and just an understanding that no matter how many people tell you that you're wrong, if your research and your experiences back you up, right, that is information, and that is something that you can use to continue to fuel your goal and to fuel your plans. So you need to kind of stand firm on the truth, on what you know is true, and reach out to your legislators on that, from that foundation of truth. So if you're secure where you are, but even if people turn you down, you can still keep going.
That's exactly right, Hannah. You stand firm on your truth, right? That's great.
Mhm.
Could you just briefly tell a little bit about what was in that House bill? What was in the bill?
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely. So
Okay.
it was a grant program, a cumulative grant program of about $1 million, but each center could request the amount that they needed to expand their resources and programs for helping men. So within an already existing institution, an already existing center, they could request funds to expand their programs for men, so that their facilities would be better equipped to help men in the specific challenges that they face in the aftermath of an abusive situation. So that was part of it. And then the second part of it was that any unused money would go towards furthering education surrounding this issue within our schools and universities.
Yes. And it got held up. I mean, how
It did
difficult?
get
I mean,
held up.
I mean,
Yes, it did get held up.
right. Do you know what
it was-
the arguments against it were, or why?
What happened was, and this happens to a lot of bills, but there are so many ways that a bill can die. Right? There
Right.
are so many ways that a bill can die. Actually, our bill made it further than most bills did in that it was even introduced at all. Right? And then it got sent to Appropriations Committee, where if the bill was brought up again, they would discuss and debate and hopefully send it to the General Assembly. But what happened was the bill was sent to the Appropriations Committee, and essentially they did nothing with it, which happens to a lot of bills. And usually the main cause of that is priority. So they'll place
Right.
other bills and other pieces of legislation ahead of, for example, our bill in this instance. And so what happened was it never got reintroduced to the General Assembly, which was sad. And I actually, because I was paging over the last summer at the House of Representatives, so I was there while the bill was dying in committee, and that was very sad. And I was trying to kind of lobby the
Right.
bill, but
Right.
something really profound that I think happened while I was there. Because like I said, I had been lobbying and volunteering at the North Carolina House. So I was there, and my shift for the day ended. So what I did was I went back upstairs into the chamber to find my bill sponsor, and we started to discuss. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what, Hannah? I don't think this bill is going to make it out this time,
Oh,
but we are still going to keep trying."
oh, great.
And that is so important to me. And you'll hear me just continue to bring that up, right? We have to keep trying and talking about it and fighting, right? But
Yes.
I think this new bill, the second bill, it just reiterates all of the same policies as the first bill. It's just under a different name now. But that's House Bill 339. And what really would help is if we could bring attention to the bill, right? House Bill 339, because that is what will get the attention of legislators, and that will prevent the bill from dying in committee again.
Right.
So if we can bring attention to it and people start to discuss it, that will help the bill to move up higher on the list of priorities for my legislatures.
Right.
They're trying to listen to their constituents, and they're trying to address the issues that are most important right now. So what we need to do is call this issue what it is. It is important, and we need to bring attention to it.
Right. What is the new? Do you have the new bill number or title? Did
Yeah,
you say
North Carolina House Bill 339.
330. That's the new bill. Okay.
That's the new bill.
So yeah. So for our listeners out there, go on the website and look at that bill and start talking about it. And contact Representative Jay Roberts to tell him what a great job he's doing so we can get it
Absolutely.
moving along.
Absolutely,
great.
yes.
You and I also talked before about coercive control, a bill on making
Mm-hmm.
coercive control illegal, right? Did you do any more work on that, or what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that is definitely for us. We're trying to take it one step at a time. So coercive control it hasn't been included in the bill yet. Not to say that it isn't on my radar and my friends' radars, but at the moment, we're trying to focus on expanding our centers.
Right.
But coercive control is definitely a very important issue, especially regarding law support and the justice system, like legal action.
Right.
So I do think that is another facet to this issue that I don't really understand why it's not illegal.
Right.
Because it is such a that kind of escapes me. That kind of baffles me a little bit because it is a form of abuse. It's a form of manipulation.
Yes.
And it is used to harm in the same way any other form of abuse is. So I think maybe it might just be a little bit harder to quantify, but some of our neighbors overseas.
Yes, done a great job, haven't they, Hannah?
Yes.
Yes, they have. They've
Yes.
been great.
I think Austria, United Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah, the UK is great. I've actually read through that framework. So the framework does exist
Yes.
for in legal action on
Mhm.
coercive control. We just need to adopt it.
Right. Yeah, that's good. What are you looking forward to regarding the future of domestic violence advocacy for men?
I'm excited because I do see a lot of talk within my sphere, within my friends and my generation. I've had a lot of really great opportunities. I've been so privileged to be able to talk about this. There are some national youth conferences, like Youth in Government and Conference on National Affairs, where high school students and teenagers get together to discuss current events and present sort of mock or false legislation surrounding certain issues that they're passionate about. And so for me, I've had so many opportunities through Youth in Government and those seminars to be able to talk about domestic violence with men and talk about domestic violence with people from my generation. And the response has just been overwhelmingly supportive. And that to me was really cool and really hopeful. So I do think we're moving towards a place where we're going to be able to discuss this more. And that for me it's exciting.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's awesome that it's in your generation that you're bringing this awareness out right now to the younger population, so that you won't have this struggle that you have now because the people before you did nothing. So now you've put in the work, you've been in these different conferences and different places to bring awareness. I don't think the task will be as difficult since you're bringing awareness to it at a earlier time period.
Yeah, I hope so. I do believe that the future is bright. And I love being able to, propose, mock legislation and mock bills about this issue and have debates with with other students about this issue. And so to me, that's really been wonderful.
Yeah. So while you've been at these conferences, what has been the reception from other students your age?
Yeah. So the way that a lot of these conferences work, specifically Youth in Government, I'm going to be talking about Youth in Government, it's a national organization, but each state has their own Youth in Government, delegation made up of a bunch of different schools from the area, students who will come together and they'll sort of act as a mock House of Representatives and a mock Senate to discuss current events and to discuss pieces of legislation, not to be confused with the actual legislation that me and my friends were able to propose. But we did talk about domestic violence, and we had a bill surrounding, establishing a center for men a domestic violence center for men in North Carolina, and in the youth legislature, it like passed unanimously 3 times.
Wow. So that's amazing. That's what we have to look forward to in the future.
Right.
Yeah, it was super
Work
powerful.
actually being done and bills actually being passed.
Right. You're right, Tara. You're right.
Yes, because you guys are our future. So I'm excited that this is
I'm
on the
excited.
table now, and you guys are already looking at very serious issues, and you guys understand what needs to be done, and things
Yeah.
are getting through. So that's amazing.
Yes.
That's great. How can other people support your efforts, Hannah?
Yeah, so I have a petition that I started a while back that is on change.org, but it's called Establish a Domestic Violence Center for Men in North Carolina. And that is definitely one way. I would love for people to sign the petition, but, create your own petitions. Reach out to your legislators. But more than that, change over time is often an accumulation of small actions.
Right.
So it's this collection of people coming together and talking amongst themselves. Talk to your friends and to your family. Learn for yourself what the signs of abuse are, so you can pinpoint it when you see it. Right? Because overall, the goal is to help real people, and that might come through dramatic legislation, or major news coverage, or it might just come from you in your own home, realizing when somebody is struggling and knowing how to help them. That is just as important.
Right. Right. And that again is for people, something anyone could do. Go to change.org and sign Hannah's petition, which is establish a domestic violence center for men in North Carolina. That's what we're trying to do here, Hannah, in the state of Missouri. We call it more of a respite center. I think we've talked about this before too, that it's even emasculating to say men need a safety shelter, right? Like they need safety, but they do need respite. They do need a mental break and psychological relief. They need a place where they can just go and sit with other men, get their self back together, and think.
Yeah.
And so we feel that's like more of a respite than a safety model. And that goes back to your point of the language isn't correct for men. The current model was created for women and children. And that's the current model that domestic violence is still following. And we need a whole new model. We need a new language. When it comes to men, we need to really, again, research what do men need? How can we help them?
Right.
And it's a process. But
it is. It's a process.
Yes, it's good. Can you recommend ways for others to get involved in their own states to support men and children who are targets of domestic violence?
Sure. I mean, if some states have shelters that cater to men, women, and children. Some states have shelters that are hopefully building like an extension on their shelter to serve men. If you could volunteer in those areas, that would be really great. Reach out to your local paper, reach out, post on social media. And I'm not saying, be a social media advocate, somebody who posts every once in a while and doesn't really engage or involve themselves. But I am saying that these are ways that we can start to further the conversation. And so none of those things are bad. And those are all ways that you can get involved. And like I said before, reach out to your legislators, talk to your parents, talk to your friends at school, talk to your teachers. I think the conversation, if we can get the conversation going, that will really start to reveal that there, to higher ups that there is a need for this.
Right. And can you just think, I'm just thinking on the top of my head, how people can start the conversation that's in a comfortable way. Because you start talking about domestic violence, it's an uncomfortable topic for people. And particularly when you talk about males as victims, it's even more uncomfortable. What are some ways to start the conversation that might not be, that may be more comfortable for people to start talking about?
I think there are a few ways to do this, and these are in no way all comprehensive, but I think if you hear, stereotypical or negative language about and men who are stuck in these abusive situations. I know I, for one, have definitely heard once or twice, you know, a man who is abused is weak or he's not a real man. I think starting to correct some of that language, you know, if you hear that, and I'm not saying that you need to, you know, start an argument or be overly confrontational, but maybe offer an alternative perspective. Maybe say, I don't necessarily agree with that. You know, that's one way. Or in more of a sit down setting, you know, you could always ask a parent or a mentor of yours or a therapist or a law enforcement officer some questions, you know, about how this shows up and what do they think about it, and start to really collect information, you know, so that you have that on hand to share later.
Right.
I think those kinds of less invasive conversations might be a little bit easier, but sometimes it's something that you need to address straightforwardly.
Right.
Sometimes there's no way to get around it other than use some uncomfortable language. And just because something's uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. You know, I think a lot of times we stick to what's comfortable and we become stagnant.
Right.
So what we're really trying to do here is progress. We're trying to move forward as a society, and we're trying to start a new conversation, and that's going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, so there are little ways that you can do it where it's more open or it's less invasive or it's non-confrontational. But then there are other instances where you might need to gauge and step out of your comfort zone.
Right. Very good. What we have coming to the end of the show, Hannah. What do you have to say to men, children, and our family members who have been targeted or witnessed female perpetrated domestic violence?
I think there's so much noise right now. There's so much noise. And more than anything, just I'm sorry. And you are not less than. You are not weak. You have not failed in any way because of this thing that happened to you.
Right.
I think it's so important to remember that. And that is an objective truth, no matter what the noise says.
Exactly.
You know, you are not weak just because your skin breaks as easily as somebody else's if you've experienced physical violence. Or you're not weak because you reached your breaking point mentally.
Right.
Everybody has their threshold.
Right. Very
I
good.
think it's so sad to see these stereotypes and this negative talk, because it does make people feel inferior or less than, or like they've done something wrong, when in reality they've been wronged in such a grotesque way. And I'm sorry.
Right. Well, we thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for the great work that you're doing, of the policy, the change that you're making. I mean, you're quite impressive. You and your friends, just fabulous. So thank you so much. And we will stay in touch.
Well, audience.
Yes, absolutely. Of course.
Thank you, Hannah. Well, audience, it's that time again when we wrap up this week's show. As a reminder, our goal is to not only help male victims, but also men find a path to save their lives and restore their identities as leaders, providers, and protectors in their families and communities. We want to thank our guest, Hannah, for being on the show. A reminder, if you are a target of domestic violence, please reach out for help. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7237. A reminder that we will join you again next Wednesday at 3 p.m. here on KWRH 92.9 FM and KXOK 102.9 FM and nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Stay safe and have a blessed week.
Thank you.
Like this and many others.